Hello everyone! This is a bonus video. My weekend preview video got a little messed up. I'm going to be encoding that, doing all I can shit with it. In the meantime, I'm going to be uploading this. I'll be watching the Sonic 2006 retrospective and the No Man's Sky review. First up, before I get into these videos, I want to say an announcement I had in my weekend preview video, but now that since that's getting slightly delayed, I'm going to put the announcement in this video. This week I'll be doing two streams. I'll be doing a 24-hour stream later on this week. I don't know when, but just stay tuned for information on my Twitter, which I'll put in the link in the description below. The other stream will be today at 6 p.m. Eastern. I'll be enduring as much as I can of the Ask the King playlist on random. I'll shuffle that playlist and watch as much of it as I can. So that'll be at 6 p.m. on Twitch. It seems that seems to be running the Twitter poll that I made. So I'll be most likely airing it on Twitch. I'll put the link to my Twitch channel in the description as well. And again, I'll also put information of it on my Twitter. So you have two links in the description to kind of follow. Yeah. So there you go. Those are the two announcements. Hope to see you guys at the Ask the King Indoor. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I have a special little drink that I'll be having during that indoor, so get to look forward to that. So let's get started on this.
What's going on, everyone? Phil here, and welcome to KOGaming. You know, recently it was just announced by Sega that 2017 was going to be a huge year for Sonic the Hedgehog. There were going to be two very high-profile new games released that were going to reboot the series and bring it into the modern era after the character had basically been kind of through the ringer in the past decade or so through various iterations and series that really didn't catch on with the mainstream consumer. But did you know that...
But it's always going to be... Sonic's always going to be shit, to be honest, TBH, because the Sonic cycle exists. And like I says, did you know? Like, I would not be surprised if he put a did you know as a tagline, because Did You Know Gaming did a segment on Sonic 06, so...
10 years ago, Sega already had tried to do exactly the same thing. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, recently I had the pleasure or displeasure, I guess, to play the Sonic the Hedgehog reboot.
Dude, this fake voice is unbearable. Unbearable.
From 2006. Now, I want to basically put you into this perspective because it really was a different era. The Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 had just launched within the past year. The game developers had not yet gotten a grasp on the new technologies that these consoles could handle, and a lot of games that were being released in the first year or so just were very subpar and not very good. So when it was announced that Sonic the Hedgehog was getting this current generation reboot and that they were going to do revolutionary things with the series that had never been done before, people were blown away and they rushed to the stores in droves to check out this brand new series of this long but much loved mascot from Sonic. And unfortunately, the game kind of went down to live in infamy as a game that had so much potential that was completely squandered by a game that felt unfinished, unpolished, and just downright buggy and broken in a lot of places. What happened with Sonic the Hedgehog 2006? Well, way back when, in 2007, I actually tried this game out for myself when I had purchased a PlayStation 3. It was one of the very first games I ever played on the console, and I couldn't even get past the first stage because it was so broken. So recently, thanks to the demand of my patrons and viewers, they said, we want to see you try out this game because you've never done it for YouTube before, and I played a full playthrough of it over on my DSP gaming channel.
But he played Persona 3, that's actually a good game, according to Persona fans, and he rage quit that, but he was able to finish this game.
What I like to do in this video is outline my experience with the game, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, my overall feelings about it, and then I'm going to reveal a little bit of behind the scenes information about the development of the game that you might not know of, and then we'll kind of get a better picture.
Oh, there's that sound.
just booting up Sonic 2006 immediately kind of blows you away. You're opens up to this pretty awesome soundtrack that's very unique to the game, and you can tell they actually put a lot of time and effort into the music. It's got orchestral stuff, it's got a lot of kind of guitar riffs and a combination of different instruments and stuff in the background music of the game. It's catchy, and you'll find yourself kind of humming the tunes and having the music stuck in your brain, similarly to previous Sonic titles where, you know, the music was always kind of synonymous with something that was catchy, and I think that's one of the things that the game actually gets right. In addition, the visuals, just playing the game for a few minutes and going through the initial parts of the game where you realize, wow, this game runs at a pretty solid 60 frames per second, at least most of the time. There are some times when the frame rates dip, but you have to remember that this game was from 2006. This was the very early stages of the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. They really hadn't gotten a handle on the hardware yet, and the fact that this Sonic team was able to put together a game that looked this good early on in the stages of this console generation is pretty impressive in my opinion. And really the thing that stands out about Sonic 2006 is that they really went in a different direction. Was it meant to be this kind of platformer game with certain kinds of elements that you were familiar with? Yes and no, but they combined that with almost an arcing RPG style system where you have an open city that you're roaming through and you buy upgrades and you do side mission content in order to earn rings to buy better upgrades for your characters. You have control of 3 completely different characters that you can...
Some of the stuff wasn't in Sonic Adventures, by the way, so...
switch between on the fly and get 3 different perspectives because they each have their own interarching stories with a unique time loop, time travel mechanic kind of plot line that had never been done. You never had a Sonic the Hedgehog game up to this point that had such a serious kind of plot line before and took its characters so seriously. I mean, just look at the cutscenes fully rendered. This reminds me of like playing a Final Fantasy game, not Sonic, and it has so many parallels to that kind of a style of epicness. You would think just by starting up the game that, wow, a lot of time and effort and production value went into this game and it just looks so nicely polished, and then you actually start to play the game. Sadly, it's the primary gameplay mechanics of Sonic 2006 that fall on their own face. It's not that there's not any fun factor, and it's not that there aren't levels...
I think you got that saying wrong. It's like, oh, it's the fault that make the game fall on their face. It's...
and parts of the game that function properly, there absolutely are. I think what they were going for with the game was a very fast-paced, action-based platformer with some puzzle mechanics and a little bit of searching and open-world exploration, which I think they kind of wanted you to do, rather than just kind of rush through the game. And it is unique in the fact that each character has a little bit of difference to them. You know, Sonic is the fast-paced runner who will move through these stages really quickly and can use his homing dash, which he's had for a few games now, to bounce off of certain enemies and move on floating through the air. Shadow has that ability as well, but also has this meter that charges up, and when he uses it, he gets some superpowers that he can use during combat. And then you've got the new character, Silver. That's just such a unique and different thing from Sonic and from Shadow. He does not have any kind of super speed at all. Instead, he has psychic capabilities, which he uses to pick up crates and other objects and throw them at enemies. He can also use his abilities to catch the enemy's ammo, such as missiles, and throw it back at them. Later on, he gets a stun attack, which allows you to then grab the enemies themselves and throw them at each other. And he also has the ability to hover long distances.
I like when you're watching this, you look at Phil's face down there. He looks like he's enjoying himself. Doesn't he look like he's having fun?
Is allowing you to cover gaps and go over ledges and things that basically Sonic and Shadow just don't have the capability of doing. So really, when you're playing the game with Silver, it does actually feel like a completely different game than when you're playing with Sonic and Shadow. And at its core, it seems like it sounds like a good idea. You know, you're running fast, you hit a speed pad, you're going at the speed of sound of Sonic, and you're doing loop-de-loops, and you're dodging left and right, and you're bouncing off of enemies, and all of a sudden you go through this little area where you gotta fight off a few enemies, and then you kind of go around a corner, you collect some items, you find a secret, you hit a checkpoint. It's kind of classic Sonic gameplay, but then there's just certain parts of the game that don't make any sense. Like, for example, whenever any of these characters hits one of the speed pads, good luck actually controlling them, because if you either tap left or right on your thumbstick, your character will careen in that direction, making it almost impossible to control them during any of these situations where maybe you have to dodge something while you're running at that speed. Maybe all of a sudden there's a gap coming up where you have to jump, and it's kind of weird because if you technically try to control your character during these segments of the game, you're going to die more often than not, and what you're going to realize is, oh, I should just leave my hand off the controller. I'll hit the speed pad and let the character run through this little segment, and then when they're done running, I'll pick it up again and I'll start playing. But then the game later on starts giving you these kind of beginner's traps, where if you're not ready to jump or dodge or do something during that speed session, you're going to die instantly, and it really becomes a double-edged sword. It's kind of ridiculous. Like, if you want them to move fast, then make a game mechanic that allows you to control your character properly, and they don't do that. Now, to make matters even worse, in a lot of situations in the game, there are these speed pads, but if you hit them, you will die. It's almost like they thought it was a good idea to put that speed boost pad there, but then if you don't use it, you can actually easily survive, while if you do use it, you die. So why is the speed pad there to begin with, unless it's some kind of a beginner's trap? It doesn't make any sense, and it just leads to massive frustration when you're on a part of a level and you're trying to figure out, how do I get past this? Oh, if I just ignore the mechanics that are in front of me and go around them, now I can easily beat it. It's just terrible game design.
Yeah, it's the speed pads that are the fault, not you who can control the character.
Let's talk some more wonky mechanics. How about that camera that constantly is getting caught while you're trying to rotate it into a position that you can see forward? Instead, it gets stuck on a wall, it gets stuck on a building, it gets stuck on a ledge, leading you to not know what the hell you're supposed to be doing or where you're going, because it just will not rotate properly. And then there's the situations in the game where you can't even see ahead of you because you're going so fast, you end up running upside down on the ceiling, and you have no idea what's going on. There's literally 3 or 4 segments of this game where there's just no way to tell what you're supposed to be doing, and you're just like, well, I'll just go with the flow, and if I survive, I survive, and if I die, I die, and you just gotta get lucky and hold on to your ass and pray for the best. I mean, if that's not a badly designed part of the game, I don't know what is. Speaking about those segments where you're running super fast, there's actually 2 particular times during the game where you're not able to slow down, and if you do accidentally maybe hit something or go in the wrong direction, Sonic will go careening off into the fucking stratosphere, or get stuck on a wall, or phase into something.
He's carrying Kanzuki.
It's just laughable. It's a game mechanic that looks like it's completely unfinished, and they just didn't bother to work on. Then there's the lock-on mechanic that I mentioned earlier, where either Sonic or Shadow are supposed to jump and then be able to actually hit something in front of them. It works pretty much about 80% of the time, and then about 20% of the time, they'll just completely whiff and go off into a bottomless pit and die for absolutely no reason, even though what you wanted to bounce off of was directly in front of you. There's many times in the game when there's little things that you're supposed to be doing, such as following a line of rings. You go to do it, you hold down the button, and doesn't work. And it just doesn't make sense. It should work 100% of the time, and it just doesn't. That's just the tip of the iceberg, though. I mean, there are actual gameplay mechanics and parts of Sonic 06 that just seem like they're unfinished and weren't actually made to be beaten without having previous knowledge of how to cheat the game in order to succeed. For example, there are 2
Wait, so we're supposed to know how to cheat games? What?
boss fights against Silver. That's right, there are parts during the game where the different hedgehogs will fight each other. And during these fights, Silver at any time can use a psychic ability to instantly grab you, slam you to make you release your rings, and then instantly grab you again to kill you. If you get grabbed once, you're dead. There's just no way around it. You're going
But he has 0 rings, so of course he's dead. He has no rings.
To die if you're in a certain position. So instead of actually fighting him legitimately, you kind of have to trick him and run away from him, and then kind of run back and either bounce off and away from him so that he never gets a chance to psychically grab you, or do running slide kicks. And it's obvious this doesn't make sense. You don't fight anything else in the game like this at all. This is made because they basically programmed the boss fights really poorly and didn't know what they were doing. How about some of the stages with Shadow? Now, one of the unique things about Shadow the Hedgehog is that he had his own game. There was a lot of guns and stuff in it, and so they said, how can we translate that into Sonic 06? Oh, I know, we'll put vehicles. You know, we'll have Jeeps that he can drive and hang gliders that he can fly on. And ultimately, none of it really amounts to anything. The hand glider stages are just complete filler. It's almost impossible to die during these stages as long as you're just flying around things that are coming at you. And really, you don't ever have to fire your gun. You could just kind of go on rails. Some of them, you don't even have to touch the thumbstick. You just survive by default. And then there's the stages with the Jeep. There's one where the Jeep is actually necessary because you need it to drive around and destroy these giant lights that are kind of shining down these watchtowers in order to proceed. But then there's a stage called Crisis City, where the city is falling apart, and you've already played the stage with Sonic, so you know that this Jeep is not necessary in order to beat the stage. If you get in that Jeep and drive, you die. There's actually no way to complete the stage by using the vehicle. They put it there and probably intended to design a way in the stage to actually use the vehicle, but you can't. If you get in that vehicle, you cannot make the jumps and you cannot actually progress throughout the stage. It's actually a beginner's trap that's going to lead to a cheap death when you drive off into the bottomless pit, and then you realize after a few tries, damn, I wonder if I don't use that vehicle, what happens? And then you easily beat the stage. It's just ridiculous. The game screams unfinished and incomplete. How the hell did this get through testing? And then there's the fact that the pacing...
Crunch time, man. When a developer wants, or a publisher wants the game out, they will do whatever it takes to get that game out.
Of the game is absolutely everywhere and all over the place. Some stages, if you just kind of beat them easily, walking through them, you can beat them within 2 to 3 minutes. Then there are other stages that seem like insane difficulty gauntlets with so many enemies coming at you and just so much challenge. First you have to fight a ton of enemies, then you have to do a bunch of crazy difficult platforming with a lot of instant death traps. Then once you get past that, you have to go through a super speed running portion of the stage. Oh, by the way, if you run out of lives during any portion of this stage, you have to start from the very beginning, and some of these stages actually can be upwards of 25 minutes or longer. So there's such a dichotomy between a stage you can beat on your first shot running through it within a couple minutes and another stage that's made so incredibly long it doesn't make sense, and it makes the game feel more disjointed and not really connected. In addition, there's the fact that each character has to basically play the same stage. Even though there's 3 completely separate characters in the game with Sonic, Shadow, and Silver, they all end up going through the same exact stages with little twists. For example, you're going through a temple, and for one character, the temple might just simply be a boss fight and nothing else, but for another character, that temple has these ridiculously difficult ball puzzles where you have to roll balls down really long hallways and get them into holes to get doors to open. But then when you play that game with another character, it's completely different again. Different enemies, different things, and so the same exact environments are reused 3 times throughout the game. And it's kind of ridiculous because ultimately there's only around 7 different stages, leading to basically you seeing the same stuff over and over with slightly different twists. So the first time you play these stages, you're like, wow, this is new and different. But by the 3rd time you're playing the stage, even though playing with Silver versus playing with Sonic and Shadow is very different, you're still like, I've been here, I've done that, I've seen this, and it ends up making you feel like you're wasting your time and just grinding and going through the motions to beat the game rather than actually seeing anything unique and different, and that's unfortunate. It basically becomes glaringly obvious by the time you finish Sonic 06 that this dev team didn't have enough time, resources, or money to finish the game, and therefore they had to reuse...
He said that, I'm going to tell you something that you may not have known about the game. Where's that part? He's been talking about the game.
A ton of stuff in order to have the game be as long as it is, clocking in at anywhere between, say, 10 to 15 hours of gameplay. Now, I just went through a lot of negative stuff about Sonic 2006, but I just want you to understand, I actually don't hate this game as much as a lot of other people. In fact, I'm happy that I played it.
Dude, it's like every game that people like, he hates, and every game that people hate, he loves. Like, okay.
Because there's actually a lot of cool stuff in the game that I thought, wow, this could have panned out to be an outstanding game that would have been an amazing reboot to the Sonic the Hedgehog series if only all of these negative things didn't exist. For example, the fact that this game has a long, intertwined narrative story between 3 completely different characters with time travel and time manipulation mechanics that you can see from 3 different perspectives. It's never been done in a Sonic game before. It was something completely different that I would expect, again, from like an RPG like Final Fantasy, and certainly not from a game like this. The fact that there is an open world to explore, and instead of being on rails like a lot of Sonic games, in this one, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of hidden secrets, there's a lot lot of feeling of movement and kind of this being a unique and an organic world rather than just a 2D go from point A to point B stage. I like that feeling. The fact that each character actually has unique bosses that they fight. And yes, some of these bosses are reused, and some characters have to fight them.
But like, you know, just play Sonic Adventure and you'll get like a better experience.
Same boss more than once. For example, Sonic and Shadow have to fight some of the same bosses, etc. But it does need to be said that the fact that each character does kind of have its own final end boss that's completely different from the others is really neat. And actually going through the story of this game and saying, wow, this character interacted with this boss, but then this character interacted with this other big villain. There really are 3 big villains in this game, and that's pretty cool for a Sonic game. The music, I love the soundtrack of this game. I mean, I don't know how anyone could either listen to the title screen or the final boss fight of Sonic 2006 and not rock out to the tunes. It's awesome, a rock music soundtrack with orchestral elements, and it really makes you feel epic. And it's a shame because it's like, man, if this was put in another game that didn't have all this unfinished stuff and these bugs, the game would have felt like such an amazing achievement and this overwhelming feeling of, yeah, at the end when you're fighting this giant boss and this music is dun dun dun. But then you realize all the suffering you had to go through to get to it, and it's just such a waste. I mean, it's just such a dichotomy. The great graphics, the intuitive stuff that they do with this kind of RPG town, the upgrades that you can buy, side content, 3 stories, so many positives, but then just weighed down by the overwhelming amount of negative crap. And you really have to ask yourself after playing this game, what the hell happened here? Well, keep in mind, it is 10 years later, and a lot of what I'm about to reveal to you is speculation, was never officially confirmed by inside sources at Sega or anything like that. But rumor has it that this game was being rushed for a holiday release, and when it went to the game testers to try out the game and see if this game was fit for sale, they overwhelmingly came back and told management, no, it's not. It's broken. It's messy. It feels like there's parts that were tacked on. It really needs to be made.
Well, according to KOGaming, this game was supposed to be a different game. Like, it was gonna be its own like property. But then they're like, oh, we're running into like this Sonic anniversary at that time or something, and they retooled it to be a Sonic game.
Better and more polished, and then the management team fired the game testers, completely ignoring their feedback and saying, well, screw you, we care more about our year-end profits and rushing a game out for holiday sales than actually making a good or functional game that gamers deserve for putting down their hard-earned money. Now, here's the thing. This happens all the time. Games get rushed out before they're ready. The difference here is that Sonic the Hedgehog's reboot came out in 2006. So once the game was released, that was it. There was no chance for them to do patch after patch. You know, if this game were released in 2016 in the modern era, on day 1 there would have been a 5 GB patch that would have fixed the frame rate issue, fixed the lock-on, removed the speed pads that run you.
Maybe they might be able to fix some of the problems, but patches don't fix every problem, and a lot of the problems might be like that might not be patchable. It's really hard to say that, like, oh yeah, if this game had patches, it would be functional. Like, it's hard to say that.
To your death, and certain things, you know, would have been fixed at launch, undoubtedly, because that seems how a lot of games work in this day and age. The games are released to retail unfinished, and then you have to get this giant day 1 patch for it to work. And then in some cases, it even takes a week or 2, and then there's even more additional things that are expanding or whatever to make it better in the long run. We feel like more like game testers than actual consumers in a lot of cases, and it could take weeks for a game that you buy at retail today to actually be the finished version that feels like a functional game. But Sonic the Hedgehog from 2006 didn't have that luxury. What was out there was out there. They couldn't fix it, and therefore it ended up being a stinky fucking turd. Now, I empathize, I sympathize with the people who worked at Sega at the time, who worked on this game. Can you imagine being someone who worked on the music or the graphical engine, and all of a sudden you find out that this game is going to have incomplete gameplay rushed out for the sake of making numbers for the year end so that the executives could look good on paper and make their big ass fucking bonuses rather than putting out a quality product that people are going to want to review properly and say it's great, and a game that people feel like they got their money's worth? I mean, I feel so bad for the Team Sega employees who were put through that. And the bottom line is, since Sonic the Hedgehog in 2006, there hasn't been another Sonic game on this scale. Yeah, there have been games that have attempted some unique and different things, but nothing on the scale of what Sonic the Hedgehog's reboot attempted.
Sure.
We've had games that are 2D side-scrollers, and we've had games that kind of had 3D elements, but nothing has ever tried to be like Sonic the Hedgehog was again now. This may change for, as you know, 2017 is a big year for Sonic. We've got two completely different styles of Sonic the Hedgehog game coming out, and I think that Sega is trying to bank on the fact that there's still a nostalgia around the character, and that people are still looking for that great reboot that they were promised 10 years ago and were not delivered. So I guess it remains to be seen in 2017. Will Sega actually give time for their games to be done and ready? Will they actually listen to feedback from game testers, or will they go for the cheap payout again? I guess it remains to be seen. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed my...
Hope you enjoyed my robot voice. Alright, let's watch this. I'm not looking forward to this video.
What's going on, everyone? Phil here, and welcome to KOGaming. You know, every once in a while, a new game comes out that totally revolutionizes the way that games are played and creates an entirely new genre of entertainment. No Man's Sky, with all of its potential and years of hype behind it, sadly, is not that game. Last week, during the launch window of the game, I played it for around 8 hours, and right here on this YouTube channel, I released my initial impressions and an early review after 8 in-game hours of gameplay, outlining some of the things that I both liked and disliked about the game. A lot of people had a lot to say about that video, and I strongly recommend that you check it out before you watch this one. Over the past week, I spent another additional 7.5 hours in No Man's Sky, clocking in at just under 16 total gameplay hours under my belt. And I felt I've now played the game enough where I can give you a full-fledged final review about what I think about this game that tries to take a procedurally generated universe, including galaxy exploration, aerial combat with space pirates, a bunch of crafting for resources, buying, selling, exploration of alien worlds and interaction with alien cultures, and tries to turn it into something concrete and entertaining. I don't think, sadly, that these game developers were successful in their overall mission, because overall, this game ends up being a buggy, messy, unpolished, unfinished mess. It really does feel like most of the time that you're playing No Man's Sky that it's the beginnings of an idea. It's the first attempt at something epic that needs to be honed in and tweaked and refined for it to be a complete game. Let's talk a little bit about the foibles of No Man's Sky. First off, when you first start playing No Man's Sky, your major concern is resource management, inventory management, and being able to upgrade and repair all of your equipment constantly, whether it's your exosuit so you can survive on these alien worlds, whether it's your ships so you can take off and fly and explore between them, or whether it's your multi-tools so that you have better mining capabilities and gathering these resources, or better combat capabilities so you can defend yourself if you happen to get attacked by a creature or a drone. After the first few initial hours of the game, once you figure out how to upgrade your inventory slots and where the best places to get these resources are, the game now kind of opens up and becomes a completely different style experience, which is cool until you start to realize one of the major shortfalls of the game. The promise of No Man's Sky was that it was going to use a unique mathematical formula to procedurally generate a randomly generated world where you could have a planet with different kinds of fauna and flora in different combinations, and that there was going to be a near infinite number of planets. There was no way you could ever visit them all, and it was going to be such a unique and interesting experience to be flying around all these different galaxies and finding all kinds of unique stuff. Unfortunately, that initial promise is never lived up to any time during the game in No Man's Sky.
But see, this is the thing with No Man's Sky. I knew that people were gonna be like, "Oh, it stars infinite," as they said it is, or whatever, because I'm always skeptical when I hear these promises, because it's like, I mean, honestly, if I say to you, "Oh, this game we're working on is gonna have infinite possibilities. You know, every time you play, it's gonna be completely different." Are you gonna be like, I believe that, I trust it, it's gonna happen? No, you're probably gonna be like, maybe.
In fact, right now, the sampling of video that I'm showing you is not a trick sample where I tried to specifically weed out certain worlds that looked the same. The bottom line is that because of the random number generation aspect of No Man's Sky, you're gonna get barren worlds and or boring worlds with almost nothing to really look at or check out the vast majority of the time that you're investigating all around space.
But at the same time, though, he rushed the game. Like, he was going... Like, this is during my break, so I only saw, like, tweets about it. And according to Dragon Killer, shout out, bro, that he just kind of stood around in plants, like, for, like, minutes at a time. Like, he just didn't really spend enough time exploring. He just kind of went from one place to another. The only thing that I've been seeing that kind of is disappointing me is that there's no easy way to travel. I don't know if that's something you could upgrade to, but it just doesn't look like it's yeah, I don't know.
It's ridiculous. Why would you pay for a game where you're walking around almost completely empty planets? It's not exciting. And in the advertisements and the PR and everything that was pushed down our throats about No Man's Sky over the past several years, we were told, oh, such a wide variety of possibilities. You're going to see this unique...
How is that a blatant lie? You've never seen it. That could be one of the planets you've never went to. You can't say, well, if that's the only thing that you can kind of prove that's a blatant lie, for sure, it would be like the whole multiplayer fiasco. A lot of people, like, are upset about it. Because he said, oh, don't expect a multiplayer game. Oh, this game has multiplayer. Like, it's just...
creature,
whatever.
you're gonna see this lush world, and none of it ever comes to fruition. Even in the worlds that I landed that had a lot of cool, foliage and stuff like that, it never looked anything like any of the PR or advertisements that were sent out for this game. So the only thing I can think of is that it's incredibly rare that you would ever run into that stuff, but it's far more common that you're gonna be on a barren, boring planet, and that's bullshit.
Bullshit.
In addition, all of the alien settlements are exactly the same. Now, I don't mean that they look absolutely identical. They will have some slight variations here and there, but every space station on the inside has the same exact structure, the same exact layout. The only difference is the doors might look slightly different, and the type of alien, of which there's only 3 kinds of aliens in the entire game, might change dependent on which part of the universe or galaxy you're in currently. On the planets, the settlements all are pretty much the same. You go through a door, either it opens or you have to blow it up. You go inside, you interact with a terminal, you get an upgrade or 2 off the wall, maybe you interact with an alien, but it's all the same. They're all these bare bones, randomly generated things that are just completely uninteresting after you've seen them a couple dozen times. And it's sad that they couldn't do anything different. They couldn't have a city, they couldn't have a town. No, it's all just completely barren worlds with tiny little huts and buildings here or there. I mean, it's a no-brainer. If you're going through kind of universal exploration, you want to run into other kinds of intelligent life and other civilizations, and outside of these generic space stations and generic little huts and settlements, nothing else ever happens in the game in that regard, and that's pathetic. But there's also the space battles, right? When space pirates come out and try to attack you and steal your cargo, or they're attacking some kind of a freighter and you can come to the rescue by following a distress call. Yeah, it's kind of cool the first couple of times that you do it, until you realize it's more of a time waster or a nuisance than anything else. Half the time when you're out in space, you're trying to gather different resources so that you can upgrade your hyperdrive and you can warp longer distances, or you're trying to increase your shield. You're trying to do something with resource management, and most of the time you'll be interacted with these pirates when it's the worst possible time. You're running low on resources, you're trying to gather to do an upgrade. Here they come. Of course, it's like clockwork, especially when you really are low on resources to replenish your shields. The pirates show up to piss you the fuck off and steal all of your inventory at the worst possible time. It really is just poorly thought out, and after you do it a couple times, you wish the whole aspect of the game was removed so you could get back to the resource.
Look, he's just standing still. Like, he should be moving around, not like, I'm gonna get you, pirates.
Exploration and just say, fuck it, this is so annoying, I don't want to do it anymore. So really, once you get the handle of all of these constant kinds of things that are always going on, now you have to decide, what do you want to do while you're playing No Man's Sky? Do you just want to go out there and explore freeform for yourself? Do you want to try to get closer to the center of the universe, which seems to be this kind of looming waypoint in the distance? Or do you want to follow the path of Atlas? Well, for all intents and purposes, my first 8 hours, I pretty much just explored wherever I wanted to, going through black holes and exploring alien worlds, to the point where I said, man, this is getting repetitive and boring. I think I should probably follow the path of Atlas and see what happens. Now, every time that you visit one of those Atlas interfaces, you're given what's called an Atlas Stone. In addition, you'll receive some upgrades, maybe some warp fuel, and you'll learn a bunch of alien words. So they actually end up being—
I heard that you sold an Atlas Stone. Like, you're trying to go to the center, following the Atlas path. You wouldn't think the Atlas Stone would be important to that?
some pretty good destinations when you first start finding them. The bottom line is there's 10 of them. That's it. There's 10 Atlas interfaces in the entire game that you can visit, and each one will give you an Atlas Stone. Now, if you're exploring freeform like I was early on, you may not have no idea what these Atlas Stones are for. The game gives you absolutely no idea what they're for either, so I ended up selling one for a ton of money and then using that to buy more inventory slots and do more of the things that the game seemed to be steering you towards at its core gameplay elements. Well, about 7 or 8 hours into my playthrough, I said I'll start trying to go after this Atlas interfaces again, and eventually around the very end of my gameplay, at the end of around 15 and a half hours, I got to the last interface. Well, guess what happened? The game said, oh, you should have saved all your Atlas Stones, because if you had 10, you could create a star. And that was the end goal of the Atlas interfaces. Not that the game ever fucking told you that, so 9 times out of 10, I'm sure people probably would sell their Atlas Stones because the game's telling you to improve your inventory, get these resources.
Follow the Atlas path, but why would you want to keep the Atlas Stone for the Atlas path? I don't understand.
Do these upgrades, and you don't even know what they're for. You're thinking, gee, maybe they're a rare asset to buy and sell.
I wonder if they had, if the description of the Atlas Stone hinted at it being important. I wonder.
Then come to find out, after so long of following this Atlas path, that you wasted your time because you sold one of the stones. Now, you can get another Atlas Stone. You have to randomly encounter an alien that has it in their inventory, which, by the way, they sell it for some insane amount of credits, like 500,000 or more. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I got pissed off and just basically didn't give a crap about the Atlas interface anymore when this happened. But I did find out that if you do create that star, all it does is create a randomly generated star in this open world No Man's Sky universe.
Spoiled it, man. I didn't even play the game yet, and he told me this. Thanks, Phil.
Universe that you don't know where it is, you never see it, and has no impact on anything. So following the Atlas interfaces, one of the major reasons to play the game, is completely pointless. Alright, so what about the other goal, reaching the center of the universe, right? Well, either if you put in a ridiculous amount of time to actually get to the entire center of the universe, or if you find upgrades through random luck, that's right, because all of the upgrades in the—
You know, I've noticed he spoils games when he's, like, really angry about them. Like, when he gets really salty, he just spoils it in his review, because he doesn't care. He doesn't give a shit. But if it's a game he likes, he doesn't spoil it.
Game are based off of a random number generator, so one person might find the best warp upgrades and get to the center of the universe within 10 hours, while another person could play for 40 and never get the upgrade needed to get there quickly. I obviously disagree with that kind of gameplay mechanic, but whatever. Once you get to the center of the universe—
But whatever. What a great argument there. But whatever. Okay.
Guess what? There's nothing there. The game just resets and sends you back to the beginning.
Oh, thanks for spoiling it, Phil. I mean, I can't, like, okay.
Claiming that it's a brand new galaxy that you can now explore. It's completely a time waster. There's no—
How do you know, Phil? You didn't experience it. It could have been a completely new thing, but whatever.
Ending. There's no end to the journey. There's no big payoff. There's not—
They never promised an ending. The whole thing that they kept promising in the game was it's ever going. Like, it doesn't have an ending. Why did you expect an ending?
Even a piece of narrative. It's just basically saying
there was no story. The beginning of the game, like, I haven't played it, but I'm sure that I'm sure there's no opening cutscene. Oh God, sorry, but there's no cutscene or anything. There's no narrative, and he's like, "Well, there's no narrative. What the fuck?"
fuck you, you paid us $60 and wasted all this time trying to get through our
that
open,
great thumbnail. What a great thumbnail.
empty fucking universe just to get to the center, and there's nothing here. It's the ultimate insult to someone who put up with the boring, repetitive gameplay of this game at length just to get there and find out it was all just a waste of your time. Now, here's the thing, folks. I fully understand that there are gamers out there who aren't like me, and that might like a game like No Man's Sky. They enjoy the fact that the game doesn't hold your hand and give you detailed tutorials on what everything was in the game, so that feeling of exploration and discovery is actually a positive one for you. And there's some people who aren't looking for a huge narrative-based experience or really any meaning to anything that they do in games. They just get hooked on this repetitive gameplay, and they just want to play it at length. I get that. But even at face value...
Wow, that was like a hidden insult in there. Like, oh, these people get hooked on repetitive gameplay, but I get that, you like that. Like, that's like me saying, like, oh, I understand why people like Suicide Squad. It's just a stupid movie, and, like, people who don't like to think like to watch, like these movies, I understand that. That would be, like, an insult. I would insult people who like those movies. I mean, that's such an insult. Why insult people who like the game?
As an objective reviewer who has to say, I understand subjectively I may not like what this game is, objectively, this game is a broken mess.
Wait, hold. I keep mixing these two. I just want to know based on influence or okay, so subjective is opinions. Okay, I don't know why I keep mixing up objective and subjective.
As I'm about to tell you about.
Whatever.
First of all, I've already mentioned the random number generator mechanic of this game, where some people will get loot before others, and sometimes you'll get a great piece of loot that will allow you to do awesome stuff, like maybe walk on a planet you couldn't before because the environment was too harsh, or maybe you'll get a better multi-tool that's really awesome and has more slots, or maybe you'll get that very sought-after upgraded warp, so that instead of just warping from one cluster to another cluster, you can jump 20 to 30 light years at a jump. So I actually heard the highest level one could jump like 1,600 light years with one warp, which is pretty damn far. But guess what? The inventory system of the game is bugged. There were times during my gameplay of No Man's Sky that I earned a high level upgrade that I had been seeking for quite a long time, and it completely vanished. It would claim I had it, but then when I went to see if I could install it in my ship, it acted like I had never collected it before. And to make matters worse, I ended up getting that item again later on, but again, it wouldn't show up. So actually, in my experience playing No Man's Sky, I could never get to the center of the universe because the game wouldn't allow me to install the biggest, highest level warp engine.
But they can patch those bugs, though.
In my ship because of a game bug. That's fucking insane bullshit. Not only is the game incredibly boring and repetitive, barren, but then if I put up with your bullshit grinding gameplay formula, and I finally get the big sought-after upgrade, you're gonna fucking take it away from me after all that time that I invested in the game? Wow, is that an unfinished, buggy piece of crap.
Unfinished.
In addition to that, the physics of the game are completely screwed up. I've heard horror stories of people whose ships started, not landing properly and ended up being like suspended in air and you couldn't get to them properly. I've seen columns of minerals that you try to mine and all of a sudden for some reason the rock is floating. I mean, you're kidding me? In a game from 2016 that charges full retail price, you couldn't put gravity and physics into this game so when you're mining the rocks will fall and maybe provide even some kind of a hazard? I mean, wow. I played games 8+ years ago that had some kind of basic physics that are left out of No Man's Sky.
Shout out to Red Faction. But that's just kind of silly, yeah. Whatever.
It's absolutely fucking laughable that this game is being sold at a full retail price. Everything about this game feels like the beginning stages of a game, an early alpha, an idea.
Yeah, that's why I'm waiting for a price drop. I'm not getting it day one. Fuck that.
At a game that's going to be expanded upon in the future, yet unbelievably, this is being sold for full retail price as if it's complete. It's a fucking ripoff. And so, undoubtedly, No Man's Sky is going to end up being another one of those gaming asterisks in the annals of history. A game that had massive potential, that could have changed the face of gaming with a unique kind of aspect. But sadly, I hate to say it, it's a great idea that was executed incredibly poorly. If anything, what I should say is this: Hello Games should sell their technology their mathematical procedural generation formula to a
Wow.
game studio who has more experience, more...
Yeah, why should they keep this thing that they have and like hone it in future installments? No, they should just get rid of it. They have only one chance. No way that they should learn. But other companies, did Hello Games like come to his house and rape him or something? They probably did, actually. Never mind.
More financial backing, better means to create a game where this formula can be implemented and tied in with characters, with story, with functional gameplay mechanics.
How would that work? How would a story work with that? Is the game gonna mathematically create voices and story elements? No. How would a story fit with that kind of mathematical equation? It can't.
With things that would make a universe feel like it's populated and vibrant and fun rather than barren and boring and repetitive and a waste of your time. Imagine if this formula were tied into a game like Mass Effect. Or imagine if a game like Destiny, outside of its repetitive team-based shooting, had a universal exploration and resource management aspect like this. That would be effing amazing, right? But the problem is, this game just tries to sell...
But he acts as if like Hello Games has the patent of the inventory system and shit in this game, when they don't. I mean, they might have patented the formula that they use, but like, just who cares?
You this mathematical procedural generation formula as a game at face value, and it's not. If anything, what this showed is that the brains behind Hello Games are very intelligent, but they're not street smart.
Oh my god, I don't know where that originated in this in like DSP's repertoire of words. Because he said it, I think he said it like when he rage quit the game and all that kind of stuff. Like, oh, street smart. Street smart means jack shit if you're not smart either. So you can't have one or the other. You need to have both. But like, if you have intelligence, but it's like, he's making it sound as if like intelligent people have no place to be here. Oh my god, this is fucking...
Get the book smarts stuff. They know that they can make a cool, unique thing, but they don't know how to translate that into a tangible game that a person would actually...
How would street smarts translate that? Street smarts is like knowing how to con people, or how other people are gonna con you. How to, like, go down a neighborhood and know which neighborhood's dangerous and not. Like, those are street smarts. Not, how can I sell a game? How can I present this idea? No. No.
Actually want to play. I've met people like this before who are highly and incredibly intelligent, but they can't relate that to the real world, and that's the major problem with No Man's Sky. It's an attempt to take a lofty ideal and turn it into...
He knows people like this. Yeah, okay, people he calls nerds. He uses nerds as an insult for no reason. Like, though, it's so infuriating when he says that, because it's like, are you fucking 12? You're a nerd. Oh my god, man, nerds are so shitty. Fuck those guys.
To something entertaining, and it fails miserably. Overall, No Man's Sky is an empty, messy, unfinished, boring, waste of time, rip-off experience, and in my opinion, the best way to describe this game is either the ultimate time waster or the ultimate spin your wheels game. Meaning you can spend an infinite amount of time in this game exploring and crafting and gathering and flying and fighting pirates and gathering words and getting towards the unique center of the universe.
Gathering words. Dude, he's getting drunk, man.
And blah blah yada yada, but it all is for nothing. It all means nothing, and that's the major problem with the game. If anything, I think the people who would really enjoy No Man's Sky are people who zone out when they play games. Maybe you've got a television playing on the side. Maybe you're watching something else from the internet on another screen while you're playing the game. That's the kind of game No Man's Sky is. People who stream on Twitch and love interaction with their stream chat. This is your game, man, because you could just be playing this and not paying any attention while you're talking with other people and having way more fun that way. But as a $60 retail release at its core face value, this game is probably worth $15 at best for what is in it and for how buggy, messy, and unfinished it is. I give No Man's Sky a 4 out of 10 score. That's my final review. I'm not playing this game anymore because I'm bored to tears and I've got far more productive things to do with my time.
Yeah, sure.
And that is it for my review of No Man's Sky. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like here on YouTube and consider sharing it with your friends so that other people can check it out as well. Also, please check out my video description where you can find a bunch of cool links, including one to my raw gameplay of No Man's Sky so you can see my experiences firsthand, as well as a link to a Loot Crate discount code for any new subscription over on lootcrate.com, as well as a link to my Patreon where your pledges can allow me
He cuts out. That's great. That's great. He didn't even like he claims he proof watches his videos and he didn't catch that it cuts out. Okay. Well, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. My weekend preview video will be up soon. So there's that. Again, I'm doing 2 streams this week. Tonight around 6 p.m. Eastern. I'll be doing a Endure on Twitch for the Ask the King playlist, Shuffled. I'll be watching that there. So enjoy that. I'll put the link to that channel in the description below. And then sometime this week I'll do a 24-hour stream. Again, I'll put information on Twitter. So there's that. Thanks for watching, and see you guys in the future.